On New Year's Eve in City H, the air was slightly chilly, and fireworks brilliantly lit up a large part of the sky. The streets were quite crowded with people, some watching the fireworks, others strolling to soak in the New Year's atmosphere. Among the passing crowd was a young woman dressed simply in a white dress that went past her knees, with a knitted cardigan over it, walking at a slow pace. She was walking while on the phone, her tone sounding like she was comforting the person on the other end. All right, I know. Don't cry anymore. Pausing for a moment, she reminded her, and don't skip meals. He won't care if you eat or not, and you might get stomachache. Nguyen Vien let out a breath. Tran Nam Te was still crying and complaining. Tell me, I've never had a crush on anyone before. So why did I have to fall in love with him? Sis, can you come to my place? It's New Year's Eve. I really don't want to be alone. Suddenly, Nguyen Vien stopped walking and turned her head to look back. She slowly replied, I see a place nearby that has the dumplings and wontons you like. I'll buy some and bring them over, okay? Tran Nam Te replied cheerfully, you're the best. Hearing that she liked the idea, Nguyen Vien walked to the front of the shop. This place was famous for its delicious wontons, so it was usually very crowded. Although it was New Year's Eve today, it was no exception. Nguyen Vien looked at the long line of people in front of her and sighed to herself. So many people. Meanwhile, the person on the other end of the line was still immersed in her sorrow. Sis, tell me, why is it that when guys break up, they go out to have fun, while girls just wallow in these negative emotions? At the same time, not far behind Nguyen Vien, too, men walked past. One of them spoke to the man who was looking at his phone. Mr. Liu, I heard that Mr. Tran's newly opened bar has a lot of pretty girls. Are you really not going? The man had a handsome face, sharp sword-like eyebrows, and exquisite features. Although he was dressed simply, it couldn't hide the handsome and cold aura behind him. When Diane him asked, Lu Non Tru was still indifferently tapping on his phone and replied, Not going. I want to go home and sleep. Diane Ham, bewildered, yelled, Big brother, it's only 9 o'clock. After a pause, he suddenly brought up the past. You've been broken up for 2 years. Don't tell me you still haven't gotten over it. You finally came back to the country. How about you go with me? Fatty got married. Now no one goes out with me. It sounded a bit pitiful, but Lu Non Tru remained as he was, calmly walking forward, and coolly repeated, Not going. Diane Ham sighed and chided him. You're so heartless. Suddenly, at that moment, he glanced past Lu Non Tru's back, then spoke in a surprised tone. Oh my God, Mr. Liu, isn't that your girlfriend? Oh no, ex-girlfriend. Hearing this, Lu Non Tru's eyes finally left his phone. He looked through the crowd, straight towards that person. Nguyen Vien was still busy listening to Tran Nam Te talk. By the way, sis, I remember it was also on New Year's Eve that you broke up, right? You should also move forward. And besides, it wasn't your fault. Don't blame yourself. Nguyen Vien just listened without saying anything, feeling that the atmosphere was just off. Tran Nam Te asked again, Do you still like him now? Nguyen Vien fell silent, then opened her mouth to speak a lie that even she herself couldn't believe. I hate him. At that moment, Lu Non Tru had completely confirmed who that person was. He turned back to look at Nguyen Vien without taking his eyes off her, his fiery gaze seeming to contain all the longing he had felt over the days. After waiting in line for about 15 minutes, it was finally Nguyen Vien's turn. She opened her mouth to negotiate with Tran Nam Te. I'm hanging up now. I'll buy the food and come right over. Nguyen Vien put her phone away and stepped forward, speaking clearly to the man at the counter. Boss, I'd like to buy 1 portion of shrimp dumplings and wontons. Just as she finished speaking, a figure shot past her, calling out an order forcefully. Give me 2 portions of dumplings and 2 portions of wontons. Nguyen Vien was clearly a bit surprised, followed immediately by annoyance. She had been waiting in line for a while, and yet someone had just cut in front of her. Thinking this, she spoke up, her tone still carrying the politeness of a young lady. Excuse me, could you please line up at the back? The man in front turned around irritably and even questioned Nguyen Vien loudly. I'm in a hurry to buy food for my girlfriend. What's the big deal if you let me go first? Can't you wait? His voice was very loud. Nguyen Vien frowned unhappily. She was usually gentle and rarely encountered such unreasonable people, so she didn't know how to handle it. She instinctively took a few steps back, but didn't. Expect to step on someone's shoe. Nguyen Vien froze for a moment. Before she could turn around to apologize, a hand was already above her head, reaching out and forcefully grabbing the collar of the man's shirt, gently lifting him to the back. Nguyen Vien was slightly astonished. The man who was thrown aside had to regain his balance to stand firm. He clutched his shoulder, about to curse at the other person, but before the words could leave his mouth, Lu Non-Tru's gaze shot through him like a knife, his cold face devoid of any emotion as he opened his mouth. I'm also in a hurry to buy food for my girlfriend. Please line up. The man looked at Lu Non-Tru in front of him, with his tall and superior physique and that intimidating aura. One look was enough to know he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Fortunately, he was sensible enough to know he couldn't win a fight and left resentfully. After everything settled down, Lu Non-Tru turned back and looked faintly at the girl in front of him. Nguyen Vien also looked at him, but quickly bowed her head shyly, speaking mechanically. Thanks. Lu Non-Tru's burning gaze remained fixed on her. He spoke in a low voice, asking her, "On the phone just now, who did you say you hated?" Nguyen Vien, who was easily embarrassed, was startled to hear that. Don't tell me she was caught bad-mouthing someone by the person himself so quickly. This can't be exposed. Nguyen Vien smoothed her hair and explained, "It's nothing. It's just that I used to know someone." But before she could finish, Lu Non-Tru cut her off coldly. "Why did you delete me?" Nguyen Vien was momentarily stunned. Lu Non-Tru's eyes looked at her searchingly. Thinking she didn't hear clearly, he repeated it again. "Why did you delete me?" Nguyen Vien averted her gaze and replied in a small voice, "We broke up." Hearing that, Lu Non-Tru's face turned icy. Then he curled his lips into a sneer. "So you couldn't just keep my number in your contacts and treat me like a dead person?" Nguyen Vien lowered her head. The truth was at that time, she didn't know how to face him, so in a moment of impulse, she deleted him. While she was wondering how to explain, luckily, the shop owner saved her from a tight spot. "Young lady, here are your dumplings and wontons. Do you need disposable chopsticks?" Nguyen Vien felt as if she had been granted amnesty, smiling as she reached out to take them. She said, "No need, thank you." After buying her food, she immediately turned to leave, so stingy as to not even give Lu Non-Tru another glance, walking past him as if he were a complete stranger. Lu Non-Tru's eyes followed Nguyen Vien's steps. He knew they no longer had any relationship, but when she treated him like this, he still felt very annoyed and upset. So, before reason could speak, his heart had already crushed it. Lu Non-Tru couldn't help but reach out and grab her wrist, calling her in a low voice, "Nguyen Vien." Nguyen Vien's body stiffened. She slowly turned her head back, once again facing him. The fireworks were bursting brilliantly across the sky. But the situation between the two of them at this moment was so cold. They just looked at each other like that until Lu Non-Tru spoke. "Can we be friends again?" Back to 4 years ago, in a fairly new apartment complex in the city center of in the lobby. Tran Nam Te was holding a cardboard box, complaining as she walked. So tired, finally almost done moving. After a pause, she asked, "But did your parents really let you move out?" Nguyen Vien, holding 3 cardboard boxes stacked high above her face, completely obscuring her, replied softly, "This place is near my house, and there are many acquaintances around. I had to beg them forever before they agreed." Tran Nam Te looked around, nodding. "The environment here is really good. You get what you pay for. But the elevator is under repair, so annoying. Luckily, your floor isn't too high." As she spoke, Nguyen Vien fumbled her way up the stairs. Seeing this, Tran Nam Te kindly reminded her, "Nguyen Vien, you're carrying too much. Be careful not to drop it." Nguyen Vien smiled and replied, "It's okay. These boxes are light. Carrying more saves me from making multiple trips." At the same time, someone was walking down from above. Just as Nguyen Vien finished speaking, the top box became unruly, wobbling and about to fall. Suddenly, at that moment, a hand reached out and held it steady. A man's faint voice rang out, "Be careful." Very quickly, Lu Non-Tru had straightened the box, his long legs brushing past Nguyen Vien. Nguyen Vien couldn't see the person clearly, but was concerned. Sorry, did I bump into you?" Lu Non-Tru didn't answer. Nguyen Vien's eyes only managed to catch a glimpse of his broad back. Lu Non-Tru quickly walked down to the lobby, his hands in his pockets as he walked past coldly. Tran Nam Te was also staring at him intently. Seeing that he was a handsome guy, she immediately smiled to get his attention. "Hey, handsome, help us out, please. There's only one more box left. Help us, and we'll treat you to milk tea." Tran Nam Tae often used this method to hook handsome guys. Most of the time, it worked because she was both beautiful and sweet. Who could resist falling for a goddess? And yet, Lunan True just coldly turned to glance at her, and in less than a second, turned his back and walked away, indifferently tossing back a sentence, "I'm busy." Tran Nam, Tae didn't expect to be rejected. It was truly a rare occurrence. Her eyes shot daggers at him. What kind of person is so cold? Nguyen Veen, however, didn't pay much attention to this. She smiled and said to her friend, "Come on, let's finish up." An hour later, at Nguyen Veen's newly rented apartment, Nguyen Veen and Tran Nam, Tae were enjoying lunch together. Nguyen Veen, while tying up her hair, said, "Oh, come sleep over at my place tonight. We can play games together." Tran Nam, Tae started slurping her noodles and bluntly refused. "No way. You go to bed at 10 o'clock. I can't sleep like that. What kind of artist goes to bed at 10 like you?" After a pause, she remembered something and held up her phone. On the screen was a guy wearing a hat that obscured the upper part of his face, looking like a reserved, cold person. Tran Nam Tae smiled boastfully. "Besides, I have a date tonight. He's a 186 centimeters tall, tan gym teacher." Nguyen Veen took a bite of her sandwich, her cheeks puffing out adorably. She looked at the screen and asked curiously, "Is that the guy you said you met at the gym? You got in touch so quickly." Suddenly, Nguyen Veen's phone vibrated. Tran Nam, Tae's eyes widened. "Who is it? Don't tell me you've got someone." Nguyen Veen reached for her phone, glanced at it, and said nonchalantly, "My mom's friend is introducing me to a blind date, and she's even making me choose one of these three." Nguyen Veen patiently glanced through their profiles, then frowned slightly. "Why is this like a lottery draw?" Tran Nam Tae took a sip of her milk tea and tilted her head. "I thought you usually like playing lotteries. Just think of this as a game. Who knows? You might draw an SSR level person this time." Hearing this, Nguyen Veen turned to look at her. SSR level? Nguyen Veen understood Tran Nam Tae's hidden meaning. She was saying that every time she played this kind of game, she had the worst luck in the world, always drawing in her card. Could it be that drawing a person this time would be the same? Seeing Nguyen Veen suddenly fall silent, Tran Nam Tae offered, "Need me to choose for you?" Nguyen Veen shook her head and refused. "No, it's okay. I've already decided to choose this person." Tran Nam Tae glanced at her phone and was somewhat surprised. "You're going to choose him? I see this guy has no friends at all. What if he's ugly?" At the same time, Nguyen Veen had already sent a friend request to the person. The other party accepted very quickly, but it stopped there. Tran Nam Tae felt annoyed for her. He added you as a friend and didn't even say a word to you. Not even an introduction. Then she thought of another possibility. Maybe he already has a girlfriend and just added you to deal with the situation. Nguyen Veen had no opinion on this. On the contrary, she looked overjoyed. "That would be great. I won't wear makeup for the blind date either. We can both just go through the motions and get it over with." The smile on Tran Nam Tae's face froze. She thought to herself, "You really don't plan on getting out of being single, do you?" The weekend arrived as expected. Nguyen Veen's mother took her to the blind date. Nguyen Veen complained as she walked, "Mom, why are we going to a blind date so early?" Hearing this, her mother frowned, stopped, and poked her on the forehead, lecturing her. "You were the one who said no meal, just a simple meeting. Meeting him before he goes to work. Just a few words, that's the simplest way. And you're still complaining it's early." Nguyen Veen obediently listened to her, nodding and admitting her fault. "I was wrong." They walked a few more steps when a middle-aged woman slowly ran over, smiling and waving. "Hey, you two are here so early." Seeing the elder, Nguyen Veen pulled down her mask and smiled. "Hello, Auntie True." Auntie True looked at the young girl, smiling like a flower. "Oh, Veen Veen is so pretty. If you didn't say you were 28, I would have thought you were a student." Hearing this, Nguyen Veen fell silent. She reevaluated herself. She wasn't pretty at all. A weather allergy had caused pimples to break out all over her face, and besides, she hadn't put on any makeup. The three of them chatted for a bit when Annie True suddenly remembered, "Oh, I saw a True arrive just now." With that, she looked across the street and waved, calling out loudly, "A True over here." Nguyen Veen curiously looked over at her blind date. On the other side of the road, Lunan True heard the call and lifted his eyelids to look over. Today he was dressed particularly simply, a white sweater paired with long black pants, wearing Martin boots on his feet. Just the two ordinary colors of black and white, but on him they exuded a very special aura. After getting a clear look, Lu Non-Tru quickly crossed the crosswalk. Very quickly, he was in front of Nguyen Vien. He slightly pulled at the corner of his mouth and began, "Hello, I'm Lu Non-Tru." Nguyen Vien stared at him, mesmerized, until she came to her senses and hurriedly pulled her mask up to cover her face, silently lamenting in her heart. He really is SSR level. They say that in love, you have to find someone on the same frequency. That people on the same frequency can create a resonant wave, but it seems that from the very beginning, he and I were not on the same frequency. After Lu Non-Tru's concise greeting, it took a long while before Nguyen Vien shyly replied, "Hi, hello, I'm Nguyen Vien." The corner of Lu Non-Tru's lips twitched slightly, his eyes pinning her to the spot. He thought to himself, why does her voice sound so familiar? Nguyen Vien was being stared at so intensely that she felt unnatural. Seeing that neither of them was speaking, Annie Tru spoke up to harmonize the atmosphere. She smiled and publicly announced Lu Non-Tru's profile. A Tru is 26 years old, a research engineer from Tsinghua University. He came to City H to research some kind of new vehicle. Nguyen Vien looked at him, her eyelashes fluttering slightly. 2 years younger than me. Seeing that the two young people were still not at ease, Annie Tru enthusiastically pushed them forward, instructing, "Take this free time to go for a walk together." Just like that, a boy and a girl started walking side by side. Lu Non-Tru had long legs, but knowing Nguyen Vien was beside him today, he slowed his pace. The silent atmosphere between them filled Nguyen Vien's mind with thoughts. Wearing a mask like this, will he think I'm weird? But I haven't put on makeup, so I don't really want him to see me. After thinking for a while, for some reason, she looked up at Lu Non-Tru. As if sensing her gaze, Lu Non-Tru quickly tilted his head back. Instantly, Nguyen Vien blushed and lowered her head, secretly looking straight ahead, not daring to glance around anymore. As she was dying of embarrassment, suddenly, the treacherous watch on her wrist blared loudly, heart rate increasing rapidly. In 10 minutes, heart rate has reached 120 beats per minute. Please pay attention. Honestly, Nguyen Vien really wanted to dig a hole and bury herself. Why would this thing turn on her like this? The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. To save her fragile self-esteem, Nguyen Vien coldly and decisively took off the watch. She threw it away under Lu Non-Tru's puzzled gaze. A moment later, he suddenly curved his lips and let out a soft laugh. Seeing Nguyen Vien remain silent, Lu Non-Tru spoke up. "Are you nervous?" Under Lu Non-Tru's somewhat gentle gaze, Nguyen Vien felt extremely guilty. She explained hastily, "No, I'm not. The watch must be broken." The two walked for a while longer before Lu Non-Tru started a conversation again. "Annie Tru said you're an artist." Nguyen Vien nodded. That's right." Lu Non-Tru continued. "So besides drawing, do you have any other hobbies?" Nguyen Vien thought for a moment, reading comics, watching movies, and reading novels too. Lu Non-Tru was a bit silent. After a while, he replied faintly, "I'm sorry, I don't know anything about those things." Nguyen Vien explained shyly, "No, it's okay." After a pause, she asked, "So what do you like to do normally?" Lu Non-Tru answered honestly, "Skiing, traveling, and fishing too." As soon as he finished speaking, both of them fell into an endless void. Needless to say, the two of them, from their outward appearance to their inner hobbies, were complete opposites. Nguyen Vien didn't want to make the atmosphere even more awkward, so after a while, she asked again, So do you like to play games? I know how to play many types of games. Maybe we can play together." When she said this, Nguyen Vien had considered it. Normally, well, guy doesn't play games, so obviously they would have some common ground. And yet, Lu Non-Tru smiled and answered honestly, very rarely. Nguyen Vien was a bit speechless, and more than that, felt slapped in the face. It was better not to ask. Now that she realized she was truly an expert at driving conversations into a dead end. It feels like we're not from the same world. He and I are like two parallel lines that will never intersect. Maybe we won't meet again in the future. They walked in silence for a long stretch, but when they reached a club, Lu Non-Tru suddenly stopped. He looked inside, while Nguyen Vien looked at him, blinking her eyes in confusion. At this moment, Lu Non-Tru spoke up. "It's still early. Shall we go inside?" Nguyen Vien was slightly startled, but didn't refuse. "Huh? Oh, The two of them went inside. The place was quite spacious, with many games, but Lu Non-Tru chose archery. After preparing everything, Lu Non-Tru picked up the bow, his posture precise and strong as he drew the bowstring taut. Nguyen Vinh watched, mesmerized, especially looking forward to a perfect result. However, by the fourth arrow, she was a bit speechless. 7 points was the highest score Lu Non-Tru had managed to achieve so far. The smile on Nguyen Vinh's face under her mask was a bit strained. So handsome, but can't shoot straight. Just as she finished speaking, a few voices rang out. 2 girls were smiling, their eyes glued to Lu Non-Tru, praising him. Look at that guy, so handsome. Do you think he'll give me his WeChat if I go ask? The other girl had been noticing him from the beginning. Hearing her friend say that, she whispered, Shoo, keep your voice down. He's with his girlfriend. Nguyen Vinh, not far away, heard everything clearly. It was better not to hear it. Hearing it was just embarrassing. Girlfriend? Who? Me? Very quickly, the 2 girls left. Nguyen Vinh looked again at the dazzling man. She closed her eyes and thought to herself, why would someone like him come here for a blind date? To be honest, she wasn't good at many things, but the one thing she did best was being self-aware. When she was in school, she weighed 70 kilograms, and her face was prone to allergies, so she often had acne. Besides her unremarkable appearance, she was no different from a homebody, staying at home and usually only liking to hang out with girls. After playing for a while, Lu Non-Tru noticed Nguyen Vinh sitting motionlessly on the other side. He spoke up, come over and play. It's boring to just sit there. Nguyen Vinh was a bit surprised. I don't know how to do archery. Lu Non-Tru smiled. It's okay. I can teach you. With the invitation from a handsome guy, Nguyen Vinh couldn't refuse any longer. She went over to give it a try. But while she was still confused about what to do, Lu Non-Tru suddenly appeared behind her. His deep voice echoed from above her head. Place the nock of the arrow firmly on the nocking point of the bowstring. Nguyen Vinh's eyes suddenly widened, her body stiffly following his instructions. Suddenly, at that moment, Lu Non-Tru raised his other hand, holding her hand that was gripping the bow, and said again, don't shrug your shoulders or tilt your head. Hold the bow firmly with your front hand. His large hand enveloped her small one. It was a good thing Nguyen Vinh was wearing a mask. Otherwise, Lu Non-Tru would have clearly seen her face as red as a boiled shrimp. Our hands touched. Lu Non-Tru corrected Nguyen Vinh's posture, their arms and legs close, their bodies near. Standing so close to a handsome guy, let alone Nguyen Vinh, even I couldn't concentrate. Her face was burning to so close, I can feel his breath. Suddenly, for some devilish reason, she found the courage to turn back and look at Lu Non-Tru. The two of them locked eyes. Under his calm gaze, Nguyen Vinh wondered, does he have any feelings for me? But very quickly, she came to her senses. No, I'm thinking too much. Nguyen Vinh took a deep breath, forcing herself not to let her thoughts wander. Calm down, Nguyen Vinh. Don't let beauty cloud your judgment. Aim for the bullseye. Aim for the bullseye. At this moment, Lu Non-Tru's eyes were still glued to Nguyen Vinh, the little girl who was being so serious. As soon as she released the arrow, it shot accurately, straight into the bullseye. Lu Non-Tru, standing beside her, was stunned. His male pride was completely shattered by her after just a few shots. But Nguyen Vinh, next to him, was completely unaware of his changing mood. She smiled and whispered, easier than I thought. To be honest, Lu Non-Tru was a bit embarrassed. He asked her probingly, are you sure you've never played this before? Nguyen Vinh, however, didn't leave him any face, replying without thinking, no, but I've played ADC quite a lot. A while later, they both shot a few more times. Lu Non-Tru's target, well, let's just say none of the arrows hit the 9-point section and the highest was 1 point. Actually, it wouldn't be worth mentioning until you looked at the target of the person next to him. Nguyen Vinh, who only ever played shooting games online, had all her arrows hit the bullseye. Truly impressive. Lu Non-Tru truly couldn't believe it. When he saw the small girl slightly bowing her head and laughing at him, he was endlessly embarrassed. What were you laughing at? Nguyen Vinh honestly asked, you don't like yellow? Lu Non-Tru frowned, a little confused, but as soon as it dawned on him, he realized something was wrong. Was the yellow? She mentioned a reference to something dark, something not age-appropriate? Although a bit startled, Lu Non-Tru quickly spoke up to clear the air. You like to speak in riddles, don't you? Just as he finished speaking, the phone in his pocket suddenly buzzed twice. Lu Non-Tru took out his phone and said in Nguyen, "Excuse me, I have to take this call." Lu Non-Tru went to a quiet place not far away, pressed the answer button, his voice flat. "Hello." The person on the other end asked urgently, "Where have you been? Didn't you say you would come to the research lab with me this morning?" Hearing this, Lu Non-Tru fell silent. He glanced over at Nguyen, who was still looking down, practicing archery. Lu Non-Tru quickly looked away and let out a breath. "Got it. I'm on my way." A moment later, Lu Non-Tru walked over to Nguyen and said apologetically, "Sorry, I have something to do, so I have to leave first. See you next time." He then smiled and waved at her. Nguyen also smiled, her eyes curving as she waved back at him. "Okay, go take care of your business." Lu Non-Tru turned and left. Nguyen watched him go, her finger hooking her mask and pulling it down a little. He said, "See you next time," which means we'll meet again, right? That evening at Nguyen's apartment, a new style idol drama was about to premiere, starring a famous cast no one had ever heard of, like Tran Nam Tae as the advisor, Du Dong as the demolitions expert, and Veen Ka Ka as the military dog. The joint interrogation was officially underway, and the person they were looking at like a criminal was none other than Nguyen. Under their murderous gazes, without them even having to ask, Nguyen voluntarily confessed to get leniency. "I already told you, I just have a tiny crush on him. There's no need to set up an interrogation scene like this." Tran Nam Tae looked extremely serious. "Let me tell you, with my experience and understanding of men, if there's physical contact on the first meeting and it's that flirty, there's a 90% chance he's a player." Du Dong slammed the table and declared emphatically, "Well said." Veen Ka Ka, beside them, also barked once in full agreement. Tran Nam Tae rubbed her temples, trying to suppress her anger so she wouldn't throw these two out. She continued, "And it's hard to avoid stubborn mistakes in your first love. If he really is a player, you'll be very heartbroken." This time, Du Dong directly stomped on the table to show her absolute agreement. This was the truth, and Veen Ka Ka barked just as fiercely. Tran Nam Tae's face was now extremely grim. She held it in, but finally threw these two noisy little devils out. Du Dong and Veen Ka Ka were clearly a little hurt. Seeing Tran Nam Tae so worried about her, Nguyen explained a little, "He and I just met yesterday. We haven't even thought about whether our horoscopes are compatible or not. Anyway, I feel like there's no harm in getting to know each other a little. If I find out he's a player, I'll just stay away from him, that's all. I know my limits." Tran Nam Tae sighed helplessly, then said calmly, "If you want to interact with him a bit to see what kind of person he is, that's fine. Give me your phone." Nguyen handed over her phone. She said again, "Take off your glasses." Then, Tran Nam Tae pointed the camera at Nguyen. Nguyen was a bit surprised and touched her slightly rough face at a picture. "But my face has ugly pimples from an allergic reaction. I really admire your skin. It's always so beautiful." Tran Nam Tae didn't pay much mind and said honestly, "This isn't a novel. Nothing is perfect, right? I get skin booster injections. What's there to be afraid of with allergies? A little Photoshop will make it look good. I'll Photoshop you to look pretty and then post it online. The first impression is very important. You didn't take off your mask when you first met, so you already lost the first impression. Let me salvage your image." As she spoke, Tran Nam Tae's fingers flew across the screen, not forgetting to remind her, "Remember not to message him first. You have to wait for him to contact you." Tran Nam Tae was busy for a while and didn't hear any response from the other. She turned around. "Did you hear what I told you?" The moment the words left her mouth, she saw the sight of Nguyen sleeping soundly in bed. Du Dong and Veen Ka Ka were also there now. The three of them, big eyes and small, stared at Nguyen. Du Dong exclaimed, "It's exactly 10 o'clock. What a sleepy head, more punctual than a rooster crowing at dawn." The next morning, Nguyen picked up her phone and shouted in surprise, "Who is this?" She frowned at the heavily photoshopped face on her wall, somewhat in disbelief. "Isn't this me? What if he meets me and sees that I'm not this beautiful? Will he accuse me of being a fraud?" At the same time, in the research lab, Lu Non-Tru and Dianham were still hard at work building a machine. Dianham looked extremely gloomy, clearly worn down by capitalism. He lamented, Brother Lu, we've been up all night for 2 days. Let's rest a bit. If we keep going, even if I don't die from overwork, my hair will run away from home. Lu Non-True was still focused on his work, not looking at him, and asked flatly, do you know what an anime convention is? Dying Ham was a little surprised. An anime convention? I've never looked into it. It's probably a gathering for ACG enthusiasts. After a pause, he asked again, why do you suddenly ask? Lu Non-True finally looked up and replied, nothing, just asking. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A beautiful girl with a bright smile walked in and said, you've all worked so hard. I brought you some breakfast, and thank you for saving my life a few days ago. If you hadn't come to the lab to help me fix my thesis, I would have been scolded by my advisor. Seeing his savior arrive, Dainham ran out gleefully. Boy, you came at the perfect time. Brother Lu has been torturing me for 2 days and 2 nights. I'm starving to death. A moment later, the three of them laid out the food. There were sweets and drinks, looking very colorful and delicious. Dainham ate like a hungry tiger. He took a bite of the soft sponge cake and asked nosily, all right, Brother Lu, how was the blind date 2 days ago? Was she pretty? Hua Boy, who was eating ice cream, also paused for a moment and looked over at Lu Non-True. A blind date? Lu Non-True didn't hide anything and recounted honestly. I didn't get a clear look at her face that day, but she was unexpectedly cute, especially when she was speaking in riddles to me. Thinking about it made Lu Non-True smile unconsciously. He lowered his eyes and continued. Moreover, she had a very nice scent, not perfume, but a scent I don't know how to describe that made me unconsciously want to get closer to her. Hearing this, Dainham bluntly condemned him. Bro, that makes you sound like a pervert. Hua Boy also threw cold water on him. Besides, want to get close on the first meeting can easily make someone dislike you. After hearing this, Lu Non-True was momentarily stunned, his initial smile vanishing. What? Don't tell me she dislikes me already. While he was panicking, Hua Boy spoke up. Brother Lu, perhaps the scent you smelled was pheromones. It's said that if you can smell the other person's pheromones, it proves your genes are compatible with each other, meaning your genes have already chosen her. At this point, Hua Boy became excited. Oh my god, being able to smell each other's pheromones, that's so shippable. Why don't you two get married first? Marrying first and loving later is also shippable. Lu Non-True's handsome face contorted as he mocked her. If you read a couple fewer novels, your thesis wouldn't have been subpar. Hearing this, Hua Boy immediately became more well-behaved. Brother Lu, just tell me if you need my help with anything. Lu Non-True fell silent, then decided to ask again. Do you know what an anime convention is? Hua Boy really didn't know. She stammered in reply. Is it like a seminar? The three of them fell into silence. Engineering students are really different, especially dry. Lu Non-True helplessly rubbed his brow and looked down at his phone. Forget it. I'll look it up myself. I don't know how busy I'll be later. Suddenly, Dainham and Hua Boy looked at Lu Non-True with sparkling eyes and said excitedly, do you have a picture of her? I'm a little curious about what she looks like. Lu Non-True replied flatly, no. At the same time, he had found some information about anime conventions. There was a common term called cos. He wondered, cos? I wonder which character she likes. Seeing that Lu Non-True wouldn't give him any details, Dainham suddenly reached out and snatched his phone. Brother Lu, let me borrow your phone for a second. Let me see if her timeline has any photos. As he spoke, he opened Nguyen's timeline. Veen. When they saw the photo Tran Nam Te had uploaded the day before, both Dainham and Hua Boy's eyes went wide as they exclaimed in amazement. So beautiful. The two of them were so focused that they didn't notice Lu Non-True's expression subtly change beside them. He frowned. Who is this? Something about this picture isn't quite right. Thinking this, Lu Non-True quickly became serious. He put on his glasses and reminded them in a low voice, stop messing around, let's get back to work. Although he said that, in his heart, he couldn't help but remember the image of that girl. At that time, she gave me the feeling that she was full of life, exuding a charm that made others feel comfortable. I want to see her again. In the evening, as usual, Nguyen Veen lay in bed, scrolling through Weibo. After a while, she got bored and opened the chat window between her and Lu Non-True, then suddenly fell into deep thought. Still no message. Did I leave a bad first impression? But he could also be busy. Should I take the initiative and message him first? Nguyen Veen lay there quietly. Just as she thought she was about to fall asleep, there was a sudden knock on the door. Nguyen Veen quickly sat up, curled up like a shrimp, then sprang up, landing lightly on her feet and running towards the door, calling out, "Coming, coming." Nguyen Vien opened the door. The person standing outside was Tran Nam Te, but she was no longer the bright, cheerful girl from a few days ago. Now she looked terrible, her spirits were down, and there were some scary bruises on her face. As soon as she saw Nguyen Vien, Tran Nam Te couldn't help but rush forward and hug her tightly. A moment later, the two went inside. Nguyen Vien took out the first aid kit and began to disinfect Tran Nam Te's wounds, asking her, "Where did you get this injury?" Tran Nam Te flinched slightly from the pain and answered honestly, "It was from that ex-boyfriend of mine." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien frowned, her voice laced with anger. "The one who's been stalking you? He dared to hit you? That's disgusting. Do you need me to tell my dad? After all, my dad is a police officer. He has some influence." Tran Nam Te was very calm. She smiled slightly. Calling the police would only get him locked up for 2 days. After that, your dad can't protect me 24/7. We broke up almost 2 years ago. I can't believe I still can't get away from him. Before, he would just stalk me a little. I didn't expect him to hit me today. He was also my first love. My love life is such a failure, sis. Tell me, what is a sweet first love really like? After a pause, she suddenly realized something and turned to smile mockingly. "All right, you haven't had your first love yet, but you're about to. That little lover of yours, what's his name? Lunan True, right?" Nguyen Vien's movements paused for a moment, her cheeks unconsciously blushing. Her voice also became hesitant. "What nonsense are you talking about? What little lover? How can you still be in the mood to joke around? Do you know how worried I am about you?" As she spoke, she raised the cotton swab and continued to apply medicine for Tran Nam Te. Tran Nam Te sat still obediently, listening to her lecture. A moment later, Nguyen Vien lowered her voice. "Does it still hurt? Do you need me to take you to the hospital to get it checked?" Tran Nam Te smiled. "It doesn't hurt anymore. But you should go to the hospital to check why your face is suddenly so red." "Ha ha ha." Nguyen Vien refused to accept the truth, arguing stubbornly, "My face isn't red." A moment later, she scolded fiercely, "Nam Te, stop moving around. I haven't finished disinfecting that spot yet." Not long after, the doorbell suddenly rang again. Vien Kaw Kaw, who was sleeping, was startled awake and barked ferociously. Outside, a man was ringing the doorbell incessantly, his mouth constantly sweet-talking. "Nam Te, I know you're in there. I'm sorry. Open the door. Let's talk for a bit. I know you're in there. Come out for me." He kept repeating the action of ringing the bell and banging on the door. His voice grew louder and louder. Inside, Tran Nam Te became panicked. "How does he know I'm here?" Nguyen Vien made a shushing gesture. "Shoo, let's pretend no one's here." However, Tran Nam Te was still very worried. After all, they were 2 girls. If the man really got in, it would be very scary. Thinking this, she turned to ask Nguyen Vien, "Sis, what should we do? I'm a little scared." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien patted her trembling hand, comforting her. "Don't be scared. I've already sent a message to my dad telling him to come here. He'll be here in a bit." Seeing this, Tran Nam Te turned her face away and smiled faintly. "Thank you, sis. I'm glad you're here." At the same time, outside, Lunan True happened to be returning. As soon as he stepped out of the elevator, he was drawn by the commotion from the man. Lunan True frowned slightly, but finally decided to speak up. "It's so late. Being here and shouting so loudly will disturb other people's rest." Hearing this, the man paused for a moment, slowly turning to face Lunan True's calm gaze. And the 2 girls inside also faintly heard the conversation outside. Although scared, they were still curious and went to the door. They happened to see the image of the 2 men standing opposite each other on the lock screen. And after getting a clear look at Lunan True's side profile, Nguyen Vien froze. "It's him." While she was wondering why he was. "Here," Tran Nam Te beside her exclaimed in surprise. "Isn't that the cardboard box guy? It turns out he lives right next door." Nguyen Vien was dazed, not quite understanding the nickname. "What cardboard box guy?" Tran Nam Te thought she had forgotten and enthusiastically explained. "Again, the one who held the cardboard box for you on the very day you moved in." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien searched her memory, then lowered her head slightly, her small face gradually turning red. "I didn't see his face back then. It turns out it was him. No wonder his voice sounded familiar before." While the 2 were distracted, the sound from outside came in again. Tran Nam Te's ex-boyfriend spoke. "Sorry to bother you. My girlfriend is angry with me and won't open the door. I was a little worried, so I did this." He then gave an embarrassed smile, as if it was no big deal. Lunan True tilted his head slightly and replied flatly, "You've been knocking for so long, but no one has answered. Maybe no one is home. If you keep knocking, I'll call security." Inside, Tran Nam Te glared at the man on the screen, feeling annoyed. He always pretends to be elegant and polite in front of others. I was fooled by that act at first. After a pause, she exclaimed, but I didn't expect the cardboard box guy to be so righteous. Nguyen Vien pursed her lips and looked at her, hesitating for a moment before finally deciding to lean in and whisper to Tran Nam Te that Lu Non Tru was her blind date. As soon as Tran Nam Te heard it, she screamed in shock. "Ha, he's your little lover?" Nguyen Vien didn't expect her to overreact like that. She was frantic and immediately reminded her, keep it down, keep it down. But what they didn't expect was that the two men outside had faintly heard them. They both unconsciously turned to look at the door. Seeing this, Tran Nam Te and Nguyen Vien were scared to death, quickly covering their mouths so they wouldn't be discovered. The man tilted his head, his eyes profound, thinking to himself, "Tisk, they're clearly inside." But as he was about to step forward to continue bothering them, Lu Non Tru swiftly stepped across, brazenly blocking the door. He was a head taller than the other man, and everything from his gaze to his posture was chillingly imposing, as if one would have to step over his dead body to touch this door today. Lu Non Tru's gaze remained fixed on the other man until he felt truly annoyed, but he was also smart enough to know his place. One look, and he knew Lu Non Tru was not someone to be trifled with, so he could only swallow his anger and turn to leave. Before leaving, he didn't forget to say politely, "Sorry to have bothered you. I'll be leaving now." Lu Non Tru lowered his head as if deep in thought. It wasn't until the other man's footsteps faded away, leaving him alone in the darkness, that he came to his senses. He said in a hoarse voice to the person behind, "The door, he's gone." Inside, Nguyen Vien and Tran Nam Te unconsciously applauded, showing extreme admiration for Lu Non Tru's heroic act. Nguyen Vien smiled, thinking to herself, should I go over and thank him later? At the same time, Lu Non Tru had quickly returned to his apartment. As soon as he entered the door, he heard the sound of police sirens echoing outside. Lu Non Tru smiled unconsciously. Not too foolish, she knew to call the police. He took off his outer jacket, his mind still on the morning's events that there's an anime convention this weekend, so I've already bought the tickets. I'm sure she won't refuse. Thinking this, he picked up his phone to look at the ticket information and smiled gently again. A while later, after finishing their patrol, the police officers said their goodbyes. Mr. Nguyen, we're heading downstairs first. Father Nguyen called out from inside Nguyen Vien's apartment. Okay, I'll just say a few words to my dear daughter and be right down. Inside, Father Nguyen began to lovingly chide his daughter, telling her she was so insistent on moving out. You know that your mother and I worry about you every day? Nguyen Vien smiled. She felt happy that her parents cared for her and reassured them. It's okay, Dad. It's very safe here, and it's close to home, too. I've also informed the management about what happened today. If anything happens, I'll call you again. At this point, she rushed towards him like a child and reminded him, Dad, you have to be careful on your missions from now on. You're getting older now. Don't rush to the front lines like you used to. Father Nguyen's face was stern as he lightly flicked Nguyen Vien's forehead, scolding lovingly. Now you're managing your dad? When you find a boyfriend and bring him home, I won't have to worry anymore. Then Father Nguyen looked at the person next to her and continued to instruct, and Nam Te too. If something like this happens again, call me directly. It's best to let your parents know as well. Tran Nam Te bowed obediently. I understand, Uncle. Thank you so much for today. Nguyen Vien waved goodbye to her father. All right, Dad. Go take care of your business. Downstairs at the apartment complex, the police officers left. The car quickly drove away. After experiencing such a scary event tonight, Tran Nam Te relaxed by looking at her phone. Suddenly, something caught her attention. Nguyen Vien came out wearing a beautiful blue and white dress, her face carefully made up, her high heels clacking on the floor. She said to the other, Hey, I'm going to go thank him. Tran Nam Te smiled knowingly. Oh, getting all dressed up just to say thank you? Nguyen Vien blushed and immediately explained, I just want to be polite. Tran Nam Te played along. Right. Whatever you say. Halfway there, Nguyen Vien suddenly stopped. She thought for a moment, then slowly turned her head to ask Tran Nam Te, Do I really look good? Tran Nam Te sized her up for a moment, then said honestly, You do look good. Halfway through her sentence, she suddenly stood up and rummaged for something in her coat pocket. Wait a moment. Tran Nam Te took out a bottle of perfume, sprayed it on her wrist, then gently rubbed it on Nguyen Vien's collar, and then said with a smile, Later when you go to his place, a single man and a single woman in one room. This is all I can do to help you." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien felt a pang of shyness and quickly turned and left, not wanting to stay and listen to her friend's nonsense anymore. Very soon after, Nguyen Vien was standing in front of Lu Non-Tru's door. She had been staring at the door for 5 minutes, her heart pounding. Nguyen Vien told herself, "It's just a thank you. No need to be nervous. No need to be nervous." Nguyen Vien took a deep breath and then gathered all her courage to ring the doorbell. At the same time, Lu Non-Tru was in the bathroom. He had just finished showering, his clothes were loose, not yet properly worn. A moment later, Lu Non-Tru adjusted his clothes and stepped out to open the door, immediately seeing a small figure waiting for him in front. Lu Non-Tru was a little surprised. He let out a huh. Seeing him, Nguyen Vien immediately opened her mouth. Thank you so much for today. I didn't expect you to live next door." Lu Non-Tru looked at the opposite door, confirming. "You live next door?" Nguyen Vien smiled. "Yeah, I just moved in a few days ago." Lu Non-Tru's lips curved slightly. He was secretly happy, but then he suddenly remembered something important. "So, was that man earlier your boyfriend?" Nguyen Vien was flustered, blushing as she quickly waved her hands. No, that person is..." But before she could finish, the person in the opposite apartment enthusiastically explained for her. Tran Nam Tay pressed her ear to the door, and as soon as she heard her sister's potential partner misunderstanding, she shouted, "That person is not her boyfriend. He's my ex-boyfriend. So embarrassing, cardboard box guy." Tran Nam Tay said so much, but Lu Non-Tru only paid attention to the nickname at the end. He looked at Nguyen Vien, a little surprised and confused. "Cardboard box guy?" Nguyen Vien's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly explained, "She's just kidding." Suddenly, a loud bark from Vien Caw Caw came from the opposite room. It was followed by Tran Nam Tay's scolding. "Shaveen Caw Caw, stop barking. I can't hear what those two are saying." Nguyen Vien felt as if her clumsy teammate had pressed the pause button, feeling a bit embarrassed. The two of them just stood there like statues, until Lu Non-Tru let out a very soft chuckle. He crossed his arms, leaned slightly against the wall, and offered, "How about we talk inside?" Without thinking, Nguyen Vien immediately agreed. Okay. Lu Non-Tru turned and walked inside. Nguyen Vien followed behind with her head down. After calming down, the blush had spread to her ears. She didn't understand what she had just done, agreeing without even thinking. She had originally planned to just stand at the door to say thank you, and then conveniently create a topic to talk about on WeChat when she got back. It was already past 9 o'clock, and she had to go to bed at 10. But it wouldn't be good to refuse now. At this moment, Lu Non-Tru glanced back slightly, and seeing Nguyen Vien's somewhat shy and embarrassed appearance, he smiled again. Then he said another sentence, "I won't do anything to you." Nguyen Vien was already anxious and flustered. Now, hearing Lu Non-Tru say it so bluntly, she was really dying of anxiety. Her voice grew louder as she explained, That's not what I meant." After speaking, she pursed her lips, not daring to look at him. This is so embarrassing. But her entire expression was taken in by Lu Non-Tru. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. Something was spreading. A few red streaks appeared on his delicate face as he glanced at her. Then he quickly became shy and didn't dare to look anymore. "This is bad. She's too cute." To ease the awkward atmosphere, he said, "I'm just teasing you." When they both entered the living room, Nguyen Vien looked around, then asked in a low voice, "Hey, do we not need to change into slippers?" Lu Non-Tru replied, "No need to change, just come straight in. I don't usually have visitors, so I haven't prepared any house slippers." With the owner's permission, Nguyen Vien dared to step inside. She assessed her surroundings and then marveled inwardly. It's so clean and tidy. While she was still dazed, Lu Non-Tru asked, "Let me get you something to drink. What do you like?" Nguyen Vien smiled. "No need. I can't drink cold things recently." Hearing this, Lu Non-Tru took long strides into the kitchen. "Then let me get you a cup of hot water." Nguyen Vien said thank you, secretly happy in her heart. He's so gentle. Saying that, she turned to go sit on the sofa. Unexpectedly, after taking just 2 steps, she saw something round on the gray coarse rug. Nguyen Vien paused for a moment. Then she bent down, picked it up, and examined it. It was a first high school badge. Did he used to study at First High School? That school full of talented people? Then a series of scenes from her school days flooded back. Among the students, a white-haired boy with a lonely back and eyes as cold as ice was turning his head to look at Nguyen Vien. At that time, She was bending down to pick up her paintbrush and the paint box that was smudged on the ground. Nguyen Vien looked at the badge and sighed softly. The bad memories came rushing back, but she immediately snapped out of it. Namtae's right. It's been so long, and if I keep thinking about it, I'll only be tormenting myself and wearing myself out. It's best not to meet that hateful jerk again. Very quickly, Nguyen Vien adjusted her emotions. She turned her head to one side, looked at the books next to her, and wondered, did it fall out from in here? Thinking that was likely, Nguyen Vien stepped forward and dropped the badge into a small box. Suddenly, her eyes glanced downwards. At her feet was a box of trophies of all kinds, so many that some had fallen out. Nguyen Vien exclaimed, "So many trophies, as expected of an outstanding student." But Nguyen Vien didn't expect that among the trophies was a picture. It was the white-haired boy who had brought terror to her during her school years. Nguyen Vien happily squatted down, picked up the trophy that had fallen on the ground, and looked at it. Then her face couldn't hide her admiration. A research award, so smart. But then she stood up and looked to the side, a little confused, but why aren't the trophies displayed in the display cabinet? The cabinet is so big, but there's only a model train in it. But Nguyen Vien quickly stopped thinking about it. After all, it's his personal preference. She continued to look at the other trophies, but this time, among the trophies, she saw a few pictures inside. Nguyen Vien reached out and randomly picked one of them. When she saw the person in the picture clearly, her eyelashes fluttered. It's him. Going back 10 years, Nguyen Vien was still a high school girl. On a beautiful Sunday, Nguyen Vien skipped along the road, holding a basket of flowers. Before long, she arrived at Aunt True's house. Seeing the woman, Nguyen Vien happily opened her mouth. "Aunt True, my mom told me to bring this to you." Aunt True happily took it, praising her in short, "Your mother's flower-growing skills are really getting better and better." At this point, she suddenly remembered something. "That's right, I haven't seen your maternal grandparents out for a walk lately." Nguyen Vien smiled and explained, "My grandma has a cold. My grandpa is taking care of her and won't leave her side." Hearing this, Aunt True teased, "Oh, the old couple's love is still so good, huh? A few days ago, Aunt Vaughn came for a haircut, and she and I were talking about your parents. Back then, your paternal grandfather and maternal grandfather were comrades in arms, and they even set up your parents when they were little. After they were discharged, they went back to their respective hometowns. Transportation wasn't developed back then, so they lost contact. Who would have thought that after your dad was discharged, he would happen to meet your mom, who had just started working there? They fell in love at first sight and have been together ever since. You see, when fate comes, you can't stop it." Nguyen Vien gave a perfunctory smile, sighing inwardly. "I've heard them tell this story hundreds of times. But a love that starts from the first meeting and lasts a lifetime like this is truly something to be desired." At this moment, Aunt True looked at her and said with a smile, "Vien Vien's hair has grown a lot. Come inside, let me trim it a bit for you. It just so happens his hair dye is done." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien tilted her head slightly, looked behind her, and through the glass door of the hair salon, her eyes met the eyes of the white-haired teenager with a cold and emotionless side profile. At this moment, Nguyen Vien suddenly remembered her homeroom teacher's warning. Recently, some delinquent students from other schools have been loitering around our school. You must pay attention to your safety. Don't talk to those students, especially the female students. You must be careful. The moment Nguyen Vien saw that person, she was 80% sure. He seems to be the white-hair guy that everyone says has a lot of girlfriends. And he often fights with students from the specialized school. I heard he's been fooling around recently, too. Maybe I should come back for a haircut next time. Nguyen Vien recalled the teenager's side profile, then connected it to his current face and hair. She was suddenly stunned. It's him. At the same time, Lunan True also walked out. He was holding a glass of water, smiling slightly as he spoke. "Is brown sugar water okay?" Hearing his voice, Nguyen Vien gently put the things back in their original place. She stood up straight, her face indifferent, no longer showing the initial enthusiasm, but she still politely received the cup with both hands. "Thank you." Lunan True didn't notice the change in her attitude and said cheerfully, "Are you free in a few days? I just booked 2 exhibition tickets." But before he could finish, Nguyen Vien cut him off. The cup of water she hadn't even drunk was placed on the stone table with a clatter. She coldly refused. "Sorry, I still have a manuscript to finish for a deadline. I'm heading back first." Lunan Lunan True was a little stunned. The smile on his face vanished. He watched Nguyen Vien walk past him, truly not understanding what he had done wrong to her, and decided to reach out and grab her hand. Nguyen Vien turned her head in surprise. Her cheeks flushed, and Lunan True was no better, his face just as red. Feeling her discomfort, he quickly let go of her hand. Sorry. A moment later, he lowered his eyes slightly, asking with some confusion, "Did I do something wrong?" Nguyen Vien rubbed the hand he had just held, pursing her lips. One day 10 years ago, as the city gradually grew dark, Nguyen Vien's group was on their way back. Her two friends were crossing the crosswalk, exclaiming, as expected of Nguyen Vien, "Your painting is being used as a model again." The other person spoke up, "Isn't this just a simple task for Nguyen Vien? The art room teacher has always liked her." Nguyen Vien let out a breath, smiling modestly. "I wish my math was better. My grades are so lopsided it gives me a headache. You can't make any mistakes in the college entrance exam in a big province." Tran Nam Te walked over and said casually, "We ate a bit late today. I hope we don't run into those delinquent students." But life is not a dream. The more you fear something, the more likely you are to encounter it. As the three of them crossed the road, they came across 4 or 5 male students, each with a different hair color, some even delinquently puffing on cigarettes. At the same time, another group of male students in red uniforms approached. The red-haired guy saw Diane Ham's group and spoke mockingly. "Isn't this Diane Ham? You got into first high school and forgot about me? Where's the white-haired guy?" Diane Ham looked at them and replied faintly, "This place is near a school. Don't deliberately cause trouble here." The red-haired guy was clearly not satisfied with his attitude. He approached and faced Diane Ham, pretending to be a good student now. "You think you and the white-haired guy are so great for getting into a key high school. What? You think we're some kind of gangsters?" Saying that, the red-haired boy grabbed Diane Ham's collar tightly, reminding him, "Don't you remember the time you were fooling around with us?" Diane Ham was clearly unhappy to hear that. Immediately after, he gave the other boy a push. The red-haired boy's face darkened, and he threw a punch at Diane Ham, cursing, "Damn it." However, Diane Ham managed to step back and dodge. Then he threw another punch at the boy's face, saying loudly, "I told you never to come looking for me again." The red-haired boy was hit and fell to the ground. At the same time, on this side, a tall figure was slowly approaching. The red-haired boy's buddy saw this and called out a reminder, "Big brother. On Engian, the white-haired guy is here." The red-haired boy glanced back, his tone aggressive, "Get him for me." And Nguyen Vien's group, standing nearby, saw the chaotic situation and quickly wanted to leave. As Nguyen Vien was about to take a detour back, Lunan True, with an icy face, brushed past her back, accidentally bumping into her drawing board. Nguyen Vien turned her head in surprise, and immediately after, her box of paintbrushes fell, and Lunan True happened to step on one of them. Her bag of brushes was either crushed or scattered, looking extremely tragic. Nguyen Vien, in a panic, was about to squat down to check when she suddenly received a death glare from Lunan True. Her whole body quickly stiffened. So fierce. Tran Nam Te, seeing her sister not leaving, was almost dying of anxiety and ran over to pull her away. Nguyen Vien angrily looked at Lunan True's back. "My brushes? I still need them for the mock exam tomorrow." No matter how she thought about it, Nguyen Vien couldn't swallow this anger. She frowned unhappily at Lunan True, then, not knowing where she got the courage, said loudly, "Stop fighting. I've called the police. There's a police station within 500 meters. The police will be here soon." Tran Nam Te, standing next to her, was startled. "Oh, my dear sister, why are you so naive?" But the group of boys in red uniforms believed it was true, their faces showing clear panic. "Damn it, that fat girl called the police. On Engian, let's run." With that, the whole group scrambled away, leaving only Lunan True's and Nguyen Vien's groups. Only then did Lunan True react. He quietly watched Nguyen Vien leaving and wondered, did I just break her things? Thinking that, he wanted to ask, clearly so. He turned and walked over, raising his hand to call them, "Hey, wait a minute." Hearing the school's big shot calling, Tran Nam Te's heart leaped, and she hurriedly pulled Nguyen Vien along. "Let's go, let's go, let's go." Seeing them continue to walk forward, Lunan True became even more anxious. He reached out his hand, wanted to call Nguyen Vien back, to ask clearly. But before he could touch her, Nguyen Vien turned around, forcefully grabbed his arm, and with a decisive use of force, threw Lunan True 180 degrees, tumbling through the air. Lunan True's face went blank. I think I'm flying." And his buddies, upon seeing this terrifying scene, their faces turned pale. One of them happened to capture this embarrassing scene, exclaiming with a shout, "Oh my god, this tank is terrifying." Very quickly, Lunan Tru was lying flat on the ground, while Nguyen Vien stood there dazed, looking at him. Tran Nam Te's heart leaped in her throat, afraid that the other guy would wake up and beat Nguyen Vien up, so she quickly pulled her hand and ran forward forcefully. "Let's run. My dear ancestor, aren't you afraid he'll get revenge later?" Back in the present, a while later, Nguyen Vien also returned to her home. She opened the door and said sadly to the person in front of her, "I'm back." Tran Nam Te, who was sitting on a sofa, heard this and sat up a little, asking in surprise, "Why are you back so early? It's only 9:30. Don't tell me you came back to sleep." Nguyen Vien scratched her cheek lightly, saying evasively, "Nam Te, I think you were right before. He and I might not be compatible." Tran Nam Te was even more surprised to hear this. What happened? Didn't you like him a lot? Pausing for a moment, she thought of something else and became more aggressive. "Did that kid do something to you? Let's see if I don't break his legs." Seeing this, Nguyen Vien quickly ran over and grabbed Tran Nam Te's arm, explaining loudly, "No, please calm down first." A while later, Nguyen Vien recounted the whole story to Tran Nam Te. After listening, she was skeptical. "Is it true or not? You're saying he's the legendary white-haired kid from back then, who liked to fight, cause trouble, and frequently change girlfriends?" Nguyen Vien petted Vien Caw and replied faintly, "It seems so." Tran Nam Te thought for a moment. "He doesn't look like it, but you were teased a lot in high school because of him." Nguyen Vien's eyes lowered. Tran Nam Te's words reminded her of that terrifying time. "At that time, I don't know how that video got posted all over social media. After that, some male students no longer called me by my name, but instead used names that mock my appearance. Little tank, fatty girl, little sticky rice ball. At first, I didn't care much until I made a fool of myself in front of the person I liked." That day, Nguyen Vien was in the art room, looking at her new painting when a tall and handsome male student walked in. He looked at her painting and smiled in praise. "Nguyen Vien, your painting is really beautiful." At this point, he paused for a moment, then shyly opened his mouth. My colors aren't very good. Can you teach me some lessons later?" Hearing this, Nguyen Vien's hand holding the paintbrush froze. She turned her head to look at the boy's side profile, her heart pounding, and was about to agree cheerfully when suddenly some rude male students interrupted, asking loudly, "Luong Yin, you like tanks? Be careful, she doesn't throw you over her shoulder too." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien's face darkened, and she coldly glared at him with a warning, "Shut up. Ma Tai, with your small body, I could knock you to the ground." After those increasingly excessive teases, I started to feel a little insecure, and after that I never dared to talk to him again. After graduation, I cut off contact with everyone except my closest friends and my elementary school girlfriends. I thought it was over, but who knew I would meet him again? Tran Nam Te knew, more or less, that Nguyen Vien had gone through such a hard time. She thought for a moment and then asked, "Why don't you move back home?" Nguyen Vien replied, "I feel it would be very difficult to be independent if I continue to live with my parents, and besides, I can't go back in such a desperate situation." Tran Nam Te patted Nguyen Vien's shoulder, "Then go to sleep first. Don't think too much." The next morning, Tran Nam Te woke up first. She borrowed a set of clothes from Nguyen Vien. As she was about to go into the room to ask her, she found that Nguyen Vien was still fast asleep. Seeing this, Tran Nam Te didn't call her anymore and gently closed the door. "Sleep well. She probably didn't get enough sleep yesterday." Tran Nam Te quickly left the house. She pressed the elevator button and waited for a moment before getting in. As she was yawning tiredly, a series of hurried footsteps ran over. Before the elevator door could close, a hand forcefully reached out to hold it. Seeing the person in front of her, Tran Nam Te's movements paused for a moment. The tall Lu Nan Chiu stood there, letting out a breath when he saw he had made it just in time. He said, "Wait a minute." Because of what happened with Nguyen Vien yesterday, he couldn't sleep all night. He had thought of countless reasons, but still couldn't understand why she suddenly became cold to him. When he woke up in the morning, he looked very dispirited, with dark circles under his eyes. He almost died in his own pile of nonsense thoughts. Lucky that he happened to meet Tran Nam Te. To avoid scaring her, he explained, "Yes, I have a few things I want to ask you." Tran Nam Te looked at him, confused, and said, huh. Lu Nanqiu hesitated before speaking. The thing is, did Nguyen Vien say anything to you when she got home yesterday? Was it because I did something that made her unhappy? Tran Nam Te observed his attitude and fell silent. A moment later, she spoke helplessly. Who said I owe you a favor? I can tell you, but I have to warn you first. Nguyen Vien is my best friend. If you're not sincere, stay away from her. A while later, at the apartment gate, after a thorough explanation, Lu Nanqiu let out a breath. Tran Nam Te stood with her arms crossed, looking at him. Hearing what you said, it really was a misunderstanding, but I still feel you owe her an apology. Lu Nanqiu replied sincerely, I will go apologize to her. Tran Nam Te made it difficult, adding, you also owe her a set of paintbrushes. Lu Nanqiu smiled. I will compensate her. Tran Nam Te continued with a hint. You also owe her a boyfriend. Lu Nanqiu offered. How about compensating with a brand new person? 1.87 meters tall, an engineer, knows how to make money, do housework, and cook. Tran Nam Te looked at his show-off face and was speechless. This person is quite shameless. But he's not as bad a person as the rumors say. After saying goodbye to Tran Nam Te, Lu Nanqiu anxiously went upstairs, approaching Nguyen Vien's house. But before he even reached the top of the stairs, he was met by the warning-filled stare of Vien Caw Caw. The moment the dog saw him, it barked fiercely, as if seeing a mortal enemy. Lu Nanqiu slowly approached, bent down slightly towards Vien Caw Caw, and asked with a smile, what's wrong? Are you venting your anger for your owner? Vien Caw Caw continued to bark until Lu Nanqiu suddenly reached his hand towards it. He said, then bite me to vent your anger. Vien Caw Caw looked at him, finally fell silent, and then suddenly stuck out its tongue and licked his finger. Seeing this action, Lu Nanqiu took it as an admission that it had forgiven him and smiled gently. Good boy. At this moment, Nguyen Vien opened the door from inside her house and called out loudly, Caw Caw, no random barking. Otherwise, I won't take you to Grandma's house later. As soon as she finished speaking, her eyes met Lu Nanqiu's bright face. She was stunned for a few seconds, then suddenly came to her senses and said, Caw Caw, come here. The dog obediently listened and returned. Nguyen Vien unceremoniously closed the door directly, not saying a word to Lu Nanqiu, ignoring him as if he were air. Lu Nanqiu pursed his lips, feeling a bit helpless. In the evening, it rained heavily in the city. Lu Nanqiu was at home when someone rang the doorbell. He went to open the door, but as soon as he saw that face, he was momentarily stunned, and at that moment, Nguyen Vien suddenly hugged him. Lu Nanqiu's body stiffened. A moment later, Nguyen Vien looked up to meet his brilliant eyes. Looking at the small girl's face, he couldn't help but reach out and touch her cheek. Nguyen Vien's face flushed slightly. She raised her hand to grab Lu Nanqiu's arm, and then suddenly and violently threw him over her shoulder. Lu Nanqiu woke up terrified from the nightmare, his voice a little agitated. Why did you throw me? But he quickly came to his senses and let out a sigh of relief. I'm sick. Suddenly, the phone on the table vibrated. Lu Nanqiu reached for it and answered, hello. The person on the other end immediately said, hello, the item you ordered has arrived. Please come open the door. Hearing this, Lu Nanqiu stood up and said to the person, okay, I'm coming. The rain continued late into the night with no sign of stopping. Nguyen Vien walked through the rain, hugging Vien Caw Caw on her way back from her grandmother's house. As soon as she reached the door, she put the dog down, then shook her umbrella and folded it. After going up to the third floor, Nguyen Vien was drawn to the sign with the two words, I'm sorry, neatly placed on the door of the opposite room. But she quickly paid it no mind and went into her house. However, as she was about to close the door, a tall, slender figure appeared in front of her. Lu Nanqiu stood there holding a beautiful bouquet of flowers, his eyes slightly lowered to look at Nguyen Vien, and said to her in a low, sincere voice, this is for you. Nguyen Vien was slightly surprised. She dazedly accepted the flowers and then asked in a slightly raised voice, for me? A moment later, Lu Nanqiu bowed slightly. I'm sorry for leaving you with a not-so-good memory. If it weren't for that video and those nicknames, you would have had a very happy high school life. You might even have started a relationship with the person you liked after graduating from high school. And then the two of us would never have met. Although it's a bit selfish to say this, I'm really happy that I can. Meet you now. Nguyen Vien was frozen by Lu Nanqiu's gentleness. While she was at a loss for what to do, Lu Nanqiu suddenly held his phone out in front of her. That's right, there's more. A second later, The voice call screen connected. The four boys on the screen bowed their heads honestly. Their voices powerful. We're sorry. Gwenveen was so scared she jumped. Her heart almost fell out. On the phone, Dianeham spoke up. I'm really sorry. I was the one who came up with the nickname back then. My mouth was a bit foul at the time. The purple-haired guy continued. I'm sorry. I was the one who sent the video to the group. I originally just wanted to tease Brother Lou a bit. I didn't expect to cause you trouble. The other two guys also shyly admitted their fault. Also, we shouldn't have joked around like that. We're sorry. Fearing they weren't sincere enough, Dianeham's skill for playing the victim immediately kicked in, with tears welling up in his eyes. He sniffled and said, you must give Brother Lou a chance. Back then, I almost went down the wrong path, and he was the one who pulled me back. Although he doesn't look like a good person, he's really the warmest person I've ever met. Lunan Shiyu, hearing his good brother expose him, looked annoyed. That doesn't look like a good person part was a bit unnecessary. Gwenveen smiled. Seeing how sincere they were, she quickly forgave them in her heart. It's okay. It's okay. It's been a long time anyway. I forgive you guys. At this point, she thought to herself, they don't seem like the gangsters from the rumors back then. And Dianeham, hearing this, was overjoyed. Sister-in-law is so tolerant and generous. The purple-haired guy was also very enthusiastic. Sister-in-law, let's hang out next time. The younger brothers kept chattering. Sister-in-law, what do you like to eat? I'll treat you next time. Lunan Shiyu frowned slightly after listening to them for a while. Never mind Gwenveen, even he was scared. Who asked them to be so enthusiastic? Immediately after, Lunan Shiyu spoke up to remind them that I just told you to apologize. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Gwenveen whispered, I was also in the wrong before. I shouldn't have struck you, but it was truly a natural reflex at the time. I didn't expect to take you down so easily. Hearing this, Lunan Shiyu's face turned pale. Then he coughed shyly. Ahem. Actually, at that time, it was because I was momentarily complacent. Now you definitely can't take me down anymore. As the two were immersed in a half-romantic, half-awkward atmosphere, a sudden sound like a thunderclap cut through. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't my stomach or yours growling, but Gwenveen's. Gwenveen frowned, clutching the bouquet tightly. Could this be any more embarrassing? But at this moment, Lunan Shiyu's eyes lit up. He had an idea. Then he said gently, I was just about to cook. Let's eat together. We can take this opportunity to get to know each other again. Hearing this, Gwenveen was a little surprised. You know how to cook? I couldn't tell. Lunan Shiyu put on an extremely smug expression. Let the chef Lu show you his skills. What do you like to eat? Gwenveen thought very quickly, then blurted out a stream of dishes. Sweet and sour ribs, sweet and sour cartilage ribs, sweet and sour fish, sweet and sour stir-fried tomatoes, sweet and sour shrimp, sweet and sour fish with shredded meat and tomato sauce. Lunan Shiyu was stunned. What? Why is it all sweet and sour dishes? Luckily, he didn't specialize in making these sweet and sour flavored dishes. Lunan Shiyu swallowed. He replied, let me try to make them. The rain continued to pour down inside Lunan Shiyu's house. The handsome guy was now in the kitchen. Because he didn't know how to make these dishes, he went online to search, learn a little, and then cooked according to the instructions. A delicious-looking rib dish came out of the pot, each piece of rib glistening, the aroma filling the entire kitchen. Lunan Shiyu seriously assessed it. Cooking like this should probably be okay. At this moment, Gwenveen also walked into the kitchen. She asked curiously, do you need me to help with anything? Lunan Shiyu turned his head, smiled, and asked, you know how to cook? Gwenveen was a little embarrassed, honestly admitting, I don't know how to cook, but I can still help by passing you the soy sauce for you. Very quickly, the conversation fell into an endless void. Lunan Shiyu refocused seriously on the dish. It seems I'll have to learn to cook more sweet and sour dishes in the future. While waiting for the meal, it was really idle. Gwenveen took the can of drink that Lunan Shiyu had prepared for her, then started a conversation. Normally at home, my dad is the one who cooks. My mom and I don't really know how to cook. The dishes my dad cooks are super delicious. He knows how to cook everything. Each time he changes the way he cooks delicious dishes for me and my mom to eat. Before, when I was losing weight, I didn't eat rice. My dad brought the rice right to my mouth, tricking me by saying that eating one small bite would never make me fat. As a result, because it was so delicious, I ended up eating 2 whole bowls of rice. Speaking of this, Gwenveen burst out laughing. I fell for his trick. What's more, the two of them love to show their affection. The new year also happens to be their dating anniversary, so not only is there a lavish meal, but they also buy a cake and anniversary flowers. I sit next to them, feeling like a third wheel. Nguyen Vien spoke for a long time, yet Lunan Chiu just stood there listening silently, not replying a single word, but at this moment his tall back looked a bit desolate and sad. It was New Year's Eve many years ago. In the place where Lunan Chiu lived, people poured out onto the streets to stroll and watch the brilliant fireworks in the sky. The atmosphere was incredibly lively. But inside an apartment, contrary to the atmosphere outside, a feeling of loneliness and desolation enveloped everything. Lunan Chiu sat at his desk with a bowl of noodles he had cooked himself. He sat watching every second, having already typed a Happy New Year message in the chat box. When the clock struck midnight, he sent it. He thought his mother would be pleased and would say something similar back to him, but she was truly very heartless, replying to him very quickly, her words carrying a tone of reproach. If you have time to send this, you'd be better off doing some practice problems. A bitter feeling spread through him. Having a mother obsessed with achievement made Lunan Chiu's heart grow cold. But it was all right. He was already used to it. He quickly turned off his phone, paid it no more mind, and ate the entire bowl of New Year's Eve noodles by himself. The sound of brilliant fireworks was in his ears, but he truly did not feel happy. Returning to the present, Nguyen Vien was still chattering on nonstop. So I was fat back then because my dad fattened me up. Later on, if you have the chance to come to my house for a meal, you'll definitely eat until you're addicted. Nguyen Vien smiled and lowered her head. However, after waiting for a long time, she didn't hear Lunan Chiu reply to her. She looked up, a little flustered, worrying inwardly. I think I've said a bit too much, and why did I suddenly invite someone to my house? Saying that makes it sound like I'm being married off. Thinking of this, Nguyen Vien's face flushed red, afraid that Lunan Chiu would misunderstand. She hurriedly explained, "About that, I didn't mean anything else by it." But before she could finish her sentence, a deep, husky voice sounded out, "That's fine." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien was a little stunned. She didn't expect Lunan Chiu to agree so readily. Thinking that Nguyen Vien didn't hear clearly, at this moment Lunan Chiu turned his head, he said again, "Then later if I have the chance, I'll come to enjoy it and learn from Uncle's skills at the same time." After saying that, he suddenly turned his body to stand opposite Nguyen Vien, making her feel endlessly shy. A moment later, a 3-course meal was served containing both protein and vitamins. The colors were bright, making one want to eat just by looking at it. The delicious food was fully laid out on the table. Nguyen Vien couldn't resist picking up a piece of her favorite ribs. She chewed it slowly in her mouth, savoring its flavor. Lunan Chiu sat beside her drinking water, his heart pounding like a drum, his gaze not daring to leave Nguyen Vien's face. He truly wanted to hear her comment. Immediately after, not disappointing him, Nguyen Vien's eyes lit up, sparkling as she exclaimed, "It's so delicious." Hearing this, Lunan Chiu finally relaxed, letting out a sigh of relief. Nguyen Vien continued to eat her meal, while Lunan Chiu on the opposite side just sat watching her eat. After eating for a while, she noticed, it seems he hasn't eaten much. Nguyen Vien looked up. Lunan Chiu was a bit aloof. He was still drinking water. Out of curiosity, she spoke up. "Aren't you hungry? I notice you don't seem to have eaten anything." Lunan Chiu immediately smiled. Actually, he didn't really like sweet and sour food, but to let Nguyen Vien be at ease, he replied, "Yes, I'm not very hungry today." A moment later, Lunan Chiu remembered something. He put down his glass of water and took out 2 tickets. "That's right. Are you free tomorrow? I bought tickets for an anime convention earlier. The time happens to be this weekend." Nguyen Vien took the 2 tickets to look at them. It was the 10th Prince's first return to the capital, his foundation not yet firm. Nguyen Vien was a little moved. She didn't expect Lunan Chiu to put in so much effort to learn about her interests. She thought to herself, or maybe I should also invite him to go skiing later. I remember he likes to ski. Pausing for a moment, she hesitated again. We've only known each other for a short time. I don't know if saying I like him would be too casual or not, but I really like him. The weekend arrived as scheduled. Nguyen Vien woke up early for her personal hygiene. At this moment, the phone on the table suddenly vibrated, It was a message from Lu Nanqiu. I'm waiting for you in the lobby. Nguyen Vien smiled, immediately becoming spirited, dashing upstairs. Time to change. Time to change? That's right. I'll also wear the wig I bought before in preparation for the anime convention. Today was still a rainy day. Down in the lobby, Lu Nanqiu was dressed simply, a black shirt and black pants, looking somewhat cold and distant. However, as soon as he heard footsteps approaching, his eyelashes fluttered. Lu Nanqiu looked up. Nguyen Vien was beautifully dressed, a white ankle-length dress, with a knitted cardigan over it, her hair waist-length. She said a little shyly, "I'm so sorry. I've made you wait long." The moment Lu Nanqiu saw her, the cold expression on his face completely melted away, replaced by a few red streaks that appeared for some unknown reason. He quickly averted his gaze. Otherwise, if he kept looking, his heart would leap out of his chest. Altogether, and on her side, Nguyen Vien was no less shy. The two of them just stared at each other, neither saying a word. A moment later, Lu Nanqiu stepped down from the stairs. He said, "The rain isn't too heavy, so I've parked the car in front." Pausing for a moment, he gently reminded Nguyen Vien, "The ground is a bit slippery. Please be careful." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien took small steps. She was wearing a white dress today and didn't want it to get splashed. However, contrary to her wishes, at the bottom of the stairs was a very large puddle. As she was hesitating whether to step down or not, Lu Nanqiu turned his head, thoughtfully asking, "Can you get down?" Nguyen Vien replied awkwardly, "Yes, I'll jump over it." Seeing her somewhat adorable appearance, Lu Nanqiu smiled and walked over. Then he extended his large hand towards her. "Step down, I'll catch you." Hearing this, Nguyen Vien's face suddenly turned red. For some reason, she trusted Lu Nanqiu very much. Immediately after, she bravely stepped into the puddle. Water splashed everywhere, and the ground was indeed a bit slippery. Nguyen Vien stumbled a few steps, then leaned forward, reaching out to grab Lu Nanqiu's hand. Lu Nanqiu kept his word, catching her safely. But after stepping down, Nguyen Vien was momentarily stunned. Only now did she realize how close the two of them were. The minty scent of Lu Nanqiu was gradually filling her lungs, a fresh and captivating aroma. Nguyen Vien remained dazed until Lu Nanqiu spoke up. "Your shoes are dirty." Nguyen Vien shyly lowered her head, replying in a small voice, "It's okay, I'll wipe it." But as soon as she finished speaking, the 187 centimeters tall Lu Nanqiu suddenly bent down, to Nguyen Vien's surprise. He gently used a tissue to wipe the dirt off her white shoes, both gently and tenderly. Nguyen Vien looked at the top of Lu Nanqiu's head, her heart pounding hard. She wanted to touch it. 20 minutes later, the two had arrived at the anime convention. The place was magnificently decorated, with neon lights illuminating everything. Nguyen Vien walked past a booth and exclaimed, "This place is decorated so beautifully." She was truly excited, skipping onto a bridge, unable to hide the smile on her face. At this moment, Lu Nanqiu on the opposite side suddenly raised his phone, aimed it at Nguyen Vien, and pressed the shutter button. Immediately after, a picture of a beautiful and graceful Nguyen Vien, her whole body seeming to glow under the lights, was born. Lu Nanqiu silently appraised it, then satisfyingly set it as his wallpaper. At the same time, Nguyen Vien also looked towards Lu Nanqiu. For some reason, she also took out her phone and aimed it at him, then quickly took a picture. In the photo, Lu Nanqiu was looking down at his phone intently, a faint smile on his lips.